Okay, so I've spent about a week trying to figure out how to get multiple height maps into a landscape for Unreal 5. Um, a lot of people were showing tutorials on how to get a height map into Unreal 5, but it was just, that one height map, and then, you deal with it. But if you want a big open world with multiple biomes, you want to customize your mountains or whatever, there was just no support for that. But I think I finally figured out a good way of doing it, and that's using a program or a plugin called Errant Worlds, specifically the Errant Landscapes one. There's a free 30-day trial for this, and the Landscapes is in free trial right now, or sorry, is in beta. So if you get the free trial, you can also use Landscapes. And I just want to kind of show you how it works, but then also I couldn't find any information of how to get your own mountains in there because they have some pre-built ones, but how to get your own in. So I'm going to go over how to get your own in, which is what I've spent time figuring out. So I'm in a project. I've got the largest landscape that it'll make you, that Unreal will allow you to create by default, and I'm in Errant Landscape mode. We will switch to create, and then here are all the pre-made brushes, they call them, I guess. So for example, we've got this rocky hill, and then you just click and you've got a rocky hill in your scene. And we'll switch over to, let's see, bulky mountain, and we'll click in a bulky mountain. Now the really cool thing about this is after it's placed, it's totally movable, and they stack together, and I mean they blend so beautifully. Look at that, you can't even tell that's two different objects. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And this is exactly what I wanted. It's exactly what I was looking for. An easy way to, very quickly create virtually anything you could think of. Now, some stuff like this, like the moon surface, is meant to be tiled, so it doesn't have the edges. You can edit that later, and I can kind of show you. Well, as I go through the video, you'll figure out how it works, and you can do that on your own. So we're going to go on how to make your own brushes, how to import your own mountains into this program, because there was no documentation on how to do that. So let's go over that. So once you've installed Errant Landscapes, you'll get this Errant Landscape stamp library folder in your main folder. Now they say this is where it has to start. Once it's working, you can move it anywhere else. I just left it there because no reason not to. All these folders are the different brushes, and then you've got this stamp library brush base. This one is the parent actor for everything that you drag in to make the mountains. For example, if I go into bulky mountains, this, as you can see, is a child of that. You could just drag that out and get it right there. So we need to make our own version of that, and there's all these maps that came with it, but the only one that seems to matter to me is this _H1. That's the height map. I'm not really sure what the heck the rest of these are attached to. So for example, if I open Bulky Mountain and we take a look at Bulky Mountain, you'll see right here under Landscape Brush Height Map Texture is set to the Bulky Mountain. None of these other textures are referenced anywhere in here. So I don't have any idea what they're supposed to be used for. Maybe it's for the biomes. I haven't quite got to the biomes yet. So if it's for the biomes, then that's what you'll have to do. You'll have to import more maps for your biomes, which is fairly easy. We're going to go over how to create and get a height map in. So I've got Gaia open right now, and this is just a standard mountain range. Now, as you can see, we've got the harsh edges on here. That won't work for what we want. So what we need to do is bring in a gradient. Okay, and we need to make sure our gradient is set to radial, so it looks like a cone. And then I usually turn the scale down a little bit to 0.95, just to give me a little bit of buffer around the edges. And we're going to plug that gradient into the range and the purlin, any generator that you have, to get something in the middle. And I don't really like that, but oh, sorry, there we go. There we go. There's our finished product. So you can see on here, it's still got some stuff on the edges, and that's from this wizard fast erosion. If I turn the fast erosion off, you'll see there's nothing on the edges. But I kind of like the way this erosion looks, so I'm going to keep it and then manually clean up the stuff on the edges. So to do that, we are going to go to, another thing I like to do also is when you go to auto level, come down here and click the LV button, auto level. That will maximize your height map 0 to 1. Now the reason I do this, like I don't want it to look like this in the game, but it's going to come out as a 16-bit grayscale image, and that means there's a limited number of positions. I think it's like 65,000 positions or something, but it's limited. So that means that if I make a very short texture, it's only using maybe 300 or 400 steps, and that's a problem if I want to scale it up. There won't be enough detail to scale up. So by maximizing the texture like this, I'm using every possible step, and then when I get back in the game engine, I can scale it down. You can always scale down and preserve detail. You cannot scale up and preserve detail. So that's why we're doing this, so that we can scale down later and still preserve all the detail. So we're going to go to the Build tab, mark this for export. I'm going to build this as an 8K. It doesn't have to be 8K, but 8K is what Errant Photon uses, so that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to output as a PNG. Make sure you don't choose anything with an 8 on it. It has to be 16-bit. If you choose an 8, you'll get staircases on there. It has to be 16-bit. Color space, yeah, that's fine, that's fine, that's fine. Start build. And let's give it a name. Call it Test Mountain. And let it build. Okay, build complete. I think it was like 3.5 minutes, 4 minutes, something like that. We got our 8K textures right here. And you can see it did give us deposits and flows and wear, so if you do end up using the biomes later, you'll just bring these textures with you. But we're going to take this one. It's called Wizard because that's the node I had listed as export, so we can name it whatever we want. I'm going to call this Test Mountain. And I'm going to open it. Like I said, we needed to clean up the edges. I'm going to open it with GIMP. Now in GIMP, you need to make sure that GIMP is set to, and it should be set to this by default, I think, when you open a 16-bit image, but it needs to be set to work with a 16-bit image. So I believe that's under the image, image precision. Make sure you have 16-bit integer selected here. If you have 8-bit, it's going to really screw it up. So now we can sort of zoom in on the edges, and let's see, that's fine. So like this guy right here, we need to get rid of this. So we're just going to grab a paintbrush, set ourselves to 100% black, 0, 0, 0, 0, okay. Let's see, size of the brush, we don't want it to be too big. And that looks good, okay. So now we're just going to, actually let me set this a little bigger, this image is freaking huge. All right, and we're just going to go over the edges. Okay, so we've got some harsh corners right here, so I'm going to set the hardness way, way down and sort of try and smooth that out a little bit. Or maybe just get rid of this altogether. All right, I'm happy with that. So we're going to go ahead and file. I don't want to overwrite, just in case something goes wrong. So I'm going to do an export as, and I'm going to call it test mountain underscore export. Hit export, and it'll give us some options here. We need to make sure that, so automatic pixel format will probably work, but I want to make sure it's 16-bit. So I'm going to choose 16-bit gray, and then export. Alright, and here's our test mountain export. So what we're going to do with this is we're going to copy, and we're going to go into our Unreal project, which I have right here. I'm in my Unreal project in the content folder, and then I went into the Errant Landscape stamp library, and normally you would make a folder, but I'm just going to dump it in here. Go ahead and paste it there, go back into Unreal, and it should recognize that there's a new asset. There it is. Let's go ahead and save. Okay, and now we're going to make a child. So we're going to right click the stamp library brush, create child blueprint class, and we're going to label this test mountain. Okay, we're going to open our test mountain, and we are going to set the height map texture to our mountain export. Compile, save. Now one thing we need to do in our height map texture that we imported, we need to make sure this compression settings is set to grayscale G8/16. Has to be that. If it's not that, it will not view it as a 16-bit image, and you'll get this really, really bad stair stepping. Okay, And then once that's done, we should be able to go back into Errant Landscape mode, create, look at our brushes, and we should see our test mountain in here. There we are, test mountain, and click, and there's our mountain. Now, you can see it's super, super sharp. We'll go over that in a second, but I just want to show you that it is fully compatible with the rest of their stuff. So I can drag this on top of an existing terrain and you know, mash them together, and it looks absolutely amazing. So let's go ahead and delete this one. And let me show you how to lower the scale, the height scale. So we're going to open our test mountain again. And in here, under height map, stamp settings, you'll see a multiplier. This is a multiplier for the height. So I'm going to set this to 0. Let's say 2. Let's try that. And go back into our Errant Landscapes, create our test mountain, and there you go, it's a lot lower. So that might be a little too low, but just play around the settings, and also when you create it, you can change the scale of it there, the Z scale there. But it's typically better to do it in the brush, that way it's always there, and you don't have to fiddle with the Z setting here. And that's basically all I wanted to show you. With this method, you can create as large of a terrain as you want and keep adding more and more mountains and valleys and craters and canyons and sand dunes and anything you could possibly want to fill out an entire open world literally in minutes. It's absolutely insane. Everyone needs to know about this program. Again, it's called Errant Worlds by the company Errant Photons. There is a free trial if you buy it. For me, it was like $150 for a single person. I missed their winter sale by like 2 days, where it was $100 per person, but you know, it is what it is. I was doing the free trial. I didn't know if I wanted to buy it yet, and so I'm telling you right now, if this interests you, please go and buy it, because it's freaking amazing. I'm not sponsored or anything like that. I'm not a YouTuber. I'm just a guy. So if you want to make massive open worlds, this is how I figured out how to do it.